Hey Absol-lites. My challenge runs are a lot of fun, and mono Pokemon runs are pretty fast, which will be good for getting out a new video quickly. So, today we figure out, can I beat Pokemon FireRed with a team of only one Charmander? Stats-wise, Charmander isn't great. It'll be fine in the early game, because the early game is built to be good for first form starters, but beyond that, it has the stats of a first form starter, obviously, which isn't great. Plus, its biggest problem, the whole reason I'm doing this run for that matter, is that it's a fire type. And a fire type, in Kanto, is really bad. Charmander is weak to Brock, Misty, Giovanni, most of Lorelei's team, and Bruno's Onyxes, resisted by Lance, mutually resistant to Blaine, and only good against Erica. You see how bad it is? Its moveset in Gen 3 is It's passable, definitely better than Gen 1, but not great. It's meant to only be used in the early game, so it doesn't have much of a moveset. Getting Metal Claw was really good early game, but it's still a really bad Pokemon overall. Oh, hey, I'm writing the script as I go, so this part is actually written before I get started. Make your guesses on whether or not we can win. I'm confident that we can win, but it'll be difficult because of Charmander's bad stats and move pool. The rules are simple as always. I can only use Charmander in battle, though I will need other Pokemon for HMs. Though, just so you know, this rule has an asterisk that we'll get to eventually. No glitches or exploits, and no items in battle, but held items and items outside of combat are allowed. Also, if you enjoy, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to join the Absol-lite fam! Right off the bat, I don't actually use the Universal Pokemon Randomizer for anything, because Charmander's already a starter. I name it Notzard, or Notzard, because that's hilarious. Our nature is jolly, so less special attack and more speed. I'm fine with that, though I would have liked more special attack. At level 13, after learning Metal Claw, I challenged Brock. His Geodude went down easily, but he did some decent damage to me and I went down to Onix. After several attempts, I came back at level 20. His Geodude went down without a hitch and I didn't even take damage, but I was worried about his Onix, so I set up 3 smoke screens. Rock Tomb is already a pretty inaccurate move, and I essentially got it down to being only 50% accurate with the accuracy drops, if I understand how stage changes work correctly. He kept trying to attack, but he rarely hit, and finally, I took down the first gym leader of this game. Along the way to Misty, I took the Helix fossil. I knew that if I didn't say what I took, you'd all ask. Actually, now that I think about it, everyone asks anyway. Comes to good for the YouTube algorithm. Speaking of Misty, I tried to fight with her at level 26. I tried to take out Staryu with Mega Punch, but I just barely didn't KO, so I used Metal Claw, knowing that she'd heal. I predicted correctly, and the next turn I took Staryu down. Next is Starmie, but while I tried to use Metal Claw and then Mega Punch, she took me down with a couple of Water Pulses. Rather than trying the fight again, I tried the rival battle below Nugget Bridge. He sand attacked me when I got Pidgeotto to low health, and I literally didn't hit again the entire fight. Needless to say, I went down. After grinding to level 31, I tried that fight again. I absolutely mopped the freaking floor with him. The only Pokemon that lived any of my moves was Squirtle, but it still went down in 2. At level 34, I tried Misty again. I used Flamethrower because I did the math, and 95 power times 1.5 from the stab divided by 2 from being not very effective is actually stronger than Mega Punch, my neutral power move. I OHKO'd Staryu anyway, but Starmie was more of a challenge. I set up a couple of smoke screens, and then I used Flamethrower. I was on low health and didn't expect to win, but she missed a Water Pulse, and then the next turn she healed because a burn got her into red, so in a couple more turns, she was down. Time for the SSN rival battle. I'm level 41, so I easily swept his entire team with Flamethrower. Man, I know I'm over-leveled, but I didn't think I'd crush him that badly. It should now be time for Surge, but I need an easy fight, and you can actually hold off on Surge for a while in this game, so instead, I'm gonna go fight Erica. 40 seconds after the fight starts, it's over! I knew this fight would be easy, but I didn't think it'd be that easy. Surge was shockingly easy. Pun. You know how I said that I did Erica first because I needed an easy fight? Yeah, this one was also easy. I swept his whole team with Flamethrower. The fight with Giovanni was also pretty easy. I took out his rock types with 2 Metal Claws each. Well, one of them missed Pharaonic, so 3, but whatever. When Kangaskhan came out, I used Flamethrower and took it out in 2. Pokemon Tower Rival Battle was way easier than it should have been. I swept literally his entire team with Flamethrower, including the 2 Pokemon that resisted it. I did get 2 back-to-back crits, but I'm not sure how much that mattered. Man, the early game of this run was brutal, but the mid-game of it is actually really easy. Rival Fivel time, sub to J-Rose. Despite my being 17 levels over-leveled, Pidgeot was still a 2-hit, and then Blastoise absolutely wrecked me on the first turn he decided to attack. While I was grinding, I watched a ton of Madrybred's challenge runs, which are actually what inspired me to make these videos in the first place, so I feel like I should have some kind of monologue to say here, but I really don't. Check out some of my other stuff, by the way. I have 2 weird, fun, scripted videos that I've made about Lumion Legacy, and I'm really proud of them. One of them's a description of the game's story to this point, and the other is a theory about Jake's real identity. They take a lot of work to script and edit, but they're a ton of fun, so I'm not going to stop doing them. Annoyingly, though, they don't do very well, and most people don't see them. So, check them out! I ground up to level 61 and tried again, after replacing Slash with Return and Metal Claw with Brick Break, since I'd only use it for rock types anyway, which fighting is also good against. Let's do this. His Pidgeot just barely lived to Flamethrower, but I took him down the next turn. Next is Blastoise, and I used Smokescreen, he used Water Gun, he hit, but thankfully, he didn't do nearly as much as before. I took him out in a few turns. His Growlithe and Execute were both one-shots with Flamethrower. Last is Alakazam, and despite my attack being dropped by Growlithe's Intimidate, I used Return, hoping to OHKO. I didn't OHKO, but he did go down the next turn. The second Giovanni fight was way easier than it had any right to be. He led with Nidorino, which I easily OHKO'd with Flamethrower, which I expected. Next is Rhyhorn, so I used Brick Break, landing him in yellow. Then he used Stomp, which despite a crit, didn't really do much. If he'd used a rock move, I would probably have been toast. I finished him the next turn, though. Next is Kangaskhan, and pretty much the same thing happened, but replaced Stomp with Mega Punch. Last is Nidoqueen, and since Ground isn't weak to fighting, I used Flamethrower. Then he used Body Slam, landing me at 8 health. I finished him the next turn. Man, it's a really good thing Giovanni sucks at his job, or that would have been deadly. I went for Sabrina next, and it was really surprisingly easy. I swept her whole team with either Return or Flamethrower. Koga was also really easy. I swept his whole team with Flamethrower. Mach caused a bit of annoyance with accuracy drops, but it was really not that big a deal. Next is Blaine, and it should have been really easy, but it wasn't. His Growlithe went down to 1 Return, but that's pretty much the only good thing to happen the whole fight. Next is Ponyta, and I failed to OHKO with Return. He used Bounce, and I got paralyzed. He healed, I took him out, but not before he got off a stomp on me. Rapidash is out now, and he repeatedly used Bounce, and I kept getting fully paralyzed, so eventually I went down. I did a ton of grinding, and came back at level 70. In part because I needed the levels, but also in part because I realized that I had a monologue I wrote earlier to play while showing my grinding, but I never recorded the grinding for that part. Whoops. Growlithe was an OHKO with Return. Ponyta was just annoying. I don't need to give you the full move by move, just know that I didn't get paralyzed, and because of some leftovers that I gave to Notsard, I was on full health at the end. Moving on to Rapidash, and it went down to a couple of returns. Last is Arcanine, and it took a bit, but he went down pretty easily since he didn't have bounce like the horses do. We're finally right at the end. Leader Giovanni. I used Brick Break, taking out his Rhyhorn in 2 hits, but he used Scary Face, harshly lowering my speed. I used Flamethrower to OHKO his Dugtrio, but not before he outsped and took me to half with Earthquake. I tried to do the same for Nidoqueen, but I didn't quite OHKO and got finished off the next turn. I tried a few times and eventually I got a run where he missed Scary Face, so I outsped the rest of his team. I didn't have any hiccups until Rhyhorn, which I failed to OHKO and lost to, though. I tried a few times but figured out that I need to be strong enough in order to OHKO Nidoqueen, so I came back at level 80. I don't think it was actually necessary, but I used Return on his first Rhyhorn to make sure that I took him out. I swept the rest of his team up to the other Rhyhorn. I didn't quite OHKO with Brick Break. He healed, I used Brick Break again, he healed again, I used Return, I finished him off the next turn. We're finally at the last fight before the Elite Four, the final regular rival battle. He led with Pidgeot, I used Return, leaving him on like 1 health. I used another Return, he didn't heal, he went down. Next is Rhyhorn, and I used Brick Break, which yet again just barely didn't OHKO. He didn't heal, and I took him down the next turn. Next is Blastoise, and I used Return, bringing him down to about half, and he used Water Gun, which despite being super effective, is really outdated at this point, and I took him down the next turn, but not before he set up Rain. Next is Growlithe, and I used Return, OHKOing. Next is Execute, and I got a crit Flamethrower, OHKOing again. Last is Alakazam, and I used Return, I didn't OHKO, he used Calm Mind, I finished him off the next turn. We're finally at the Elite Four. Ice Trainer Lorelei. I took Dewgong out in 2 Brick Breaks, but not before she got off a Surf, bringing me down to about half. It was a really long time thanks to Protect and Healing, but I eventually took down Cloyster with a bunch of Brick Breaks. Next is Lapras, and I used Brick Break, she used Confuse Ray, she ate a berry, I didn't hit myself, she used Surf, I did hit myself, she used Surf again, I went down. I came back at level 90. I used Brick Break on Dewgong, bringing it to low health, she used Surf, bringing me down to a bit more than half, she healed, I finished her off with Return. Next is Cloyster, and it went pretty much the same way as last time, with me eventually beating it after a couple of Protect annoyances. Next is Lapras, and thankfully it was much easier. I took it out with a couple of Brick Breaks. Next is Slowbro, I used Return, bringing her down to a bit more than half, but she took me out with Surf. I don't want to, but after a bunch of attempts, and I mean a bunch of attempts, I decided that the best call is to just bite the bullet and grind to level 100. Well, I would, but I've gotten really attached to Notzard at this point, and decided while I was grinding that if I finally let him evolve into Charmeleon level 100 right after beating the league, it would be really great. So that's what I'm doing, and I ground up to level 99 instead. It took a bunch of attempts, but eventually I got a run where I got just the right luck with my high rolls, her low rolls, and the AI being an idiot that I managed to win. I got really scared that I'd come so far only to lose when Slowbro yawned me and Jinx attracted me, so I was infatuated and asleep when I got to Jinx, but thankfully I managed to wake up, bypass the attract, and win. Next up is Fighting Trainer Bruno. He led with Onix, so I used Brick Break, which annoyingly didn't KO, and I used Flamethrower, taking advantage of his poor special defense and KOing him despite the fact that he had healed. Next is Hitmonchan, and I used Flamethrower, which just barely didn't KO, and he used Rock Tomb, which didn't do much, and I finished him off the next turn. Next is Machamp, and I took it out with a couple of Flamethrowers. He brought out another Onix, and I used Flamethrower, which just barely didn't KO. I took him out the next turn with Dragon Claw, though. Last is Hitmonchan, and I misclicked and used Dragon Claw, but I didn't do much, and he used Mega Tech, which also didn't do much. I finished him off the next turn. Agatha was exceptionally easy. I swept pretty much her entire team with Flamethrower. Man, I expected this fight to be easier than Lorelei. I didn't expect it to be quite this easy. So here comes the asterisk that I mentioned in the rules. So, as you saw, Notzard got to level 100 in this battle. And if you recall, I said when I was grinding that I got him to level 99 rather than 100, so I could evolve him when I beat the league, since I'd gotten attached to him, and all he's wanted to do this whole run is evolve, and I haven't let him. So I'm really not sure here. YouTube doesn't let you put polls in the cards anymore, so I'll just put it to you commenters. Do you think this cheapens the run? Charmeleon has a stat total of about 400, which is definitely an upgrade to Charmander, but still a lot worse than the rival's Blastoise, and not even in the same tier as Lance's Dragonite. So I decided the best play was to make a save state right when it said Notzard was evolving. And if the comments say that this does make the run cheap, I'll do a short video of me playing through the rest of the run without evolving, just to see if it would be possible. Oh, here's my stats by the way. Definitely an improvement to Charmander, but nowhere near close to on par with the Pokemon that I'm going up against here. Lance was surprisingly easy. I used Return on Gyarados, bringing it down to a little more than half. He went for Dragon Rage, even though one decent water move would have probably killed me, and I took him down the next turn with a crit return. Moving on to Aerodactyl, I used Dragon Claw because it was my only move that wasn't resisted. Well, no, actually while I wrote this, I realized that Brick Break was also neutral, since he resisted from the flying half but is weak to it from the rock half, but Dragon Claw was still stronger anyway. I took it out in 2 hits, even if Ancient Power did scare me a bit. Now we get onto his 3 Pokemon that are actually Dragon type, and I OHKO'd all 3 of them with Dragon Claw. Wow. We're finally at the end. Champion Blue. Pidgeot was a 1-shot with Flamethrower. Rhydon was a 2-shot with Brick Break, but not before getting off one Scary Face on me. Next is Blastoise, and it was a 2-shot with Return, but not before setting up Rain. Next is Alakazam, and it did manage to outspeed me thanks to Rhydon's Scary Face, but I still 2-shotted it with Flamethrower, despite the rain. Next is Executor, and thanks to the rain I just barely couldn't OHKO it, and he put me to sleep. I woke up after a few turns and 2-shotted it anyway, though. Last is Arcanine, and it took ages, thanks to my strongest move, Flamethrower, being resisted, him continually healing, and the Intimidate making my return do less, but eventually, I took him down. Can't lie though, having to figure out what moves to use when in order to beat him without him healing was actually a lot of fun. So, can I beat Pokemon FireRed with a Charmander? Well, I don't technically know. But, can I get past Agatha in that game and beat the rest of the run with a Charmeleon? Yes. Yes I can. Man, this run was actually a ton of fun. It had its low points just like any other run, and it was way harder than I was expecting, but I still really liked it. I actually did this run expecting it to be a quick and easy one that I could do in like a day, so I could get the video out on time, but that didn't happen. Unrelated, I've started streaming Tales of Symphonia on here. I'm writing this before I do the stream, but I'll either keep doing them on here, or I'll do them on Twitch at twitch.tv/Absol-lites, depending on how well the stream does. If I get this video out on time, I did the stream yesterday, otherwise I did it on Wednesday. Anyway, thanks for watching, subscribe, ring the bell for more, and goodbye.